In the following video, I'll be going over the purchasing card program for the River Authority, and at the end of the training, I will provide you with a form that you will need to sign to send back to finance in order to actually receive your card. So once you've watched the video and received all the documents necessary, then we will issue the card to you. With the link to the video, you should have also received a PDF version of the following training that I'm going to go through. You can use that to keep on file and use for future reference if you ever have any additional questions. The intended purpose of the class is just to go over the purchasing card program and highlight the key aspects, and to make sure you know that as a cardholder, you're responsible for River Authority official business only, and you can't use the card for any personal transactions. The purpose of the cards: it reduces the cost of processing small dollar transactions. It can be used with co-op contracts. It reduces the delivery time of required items. It simplifies the payment process. We help to save taxpayer dollars, and also at the end of the fiscal year, we do earn a rebate based on how much we spend, so we do encourage use of the card as much as possible. The River Authority currently has two groups of card users. The groups are based on limits assigned by management when you receive the card. And Group 1 is a $2,500 single transaction limit and a $5,000 monthly credit limit. Group 2 is a $5,000 single transaction limit and a $10,000 monthly credit limit. These limits are set based on management and your level at the organization. And what these mean is that $2,500 and 1 penny, if your single transaction limit is $2,500, you will be declined. You are also responsible for keeping track of how much you've spent throughout the month, because if you do go over that $5,000 monthly limit, you'll be declined as well. The card is not tied to your personal credit at all, but if misused or abused, it could affect your employment with the River Authority. You can use the card for travel-related services once we've received the request to attend training and conference form. That's the form that you fill out with all of the information for the training or conference event, and have your manager sign it and have HR sign it. They will then send it back to you, and that means you're good to go and make any reservations necessary. You can also use it for products and services, including shipping and freight, less than your single transaction limit. So as long as you're below that single transaction limit, you will not be declined. You can't split transactions, and you can't split between card holders. So that means you can't split up the transaction so that the card will go through to avoid your single transaction limits or your monthly limits. You also can't use it for professional services regardless of the amount. That's due to the fact that professional services are governed by a professional services policy, and they require contracts and other processes in order to contract for a professional service. Professional services really include architects, engineers, and different services like that, and so they don't affect too many people here at the River Authority, but we do ask that if you have a professional service, you check with finance before putting it on a P card. Sales tax. This is a very important slide. SARA, as a local government agency, is tax exempt. If you are ever charged tax on your card, it's your responsibility to make sure it either gets reimbursed to the card, or you will need to reimburse it out of your own pocket. The card holder is responsible for making sure that you do not get charged tax whatsoever to the card. Although we are tax exempt, there are certain travel-related expenses that we're required to pay at hotels, airlines, rental car facilities, things like that. So if you are traveling, you can get charged tax in some cases, so just make sure that they're on that approved list of travel-related purchases. Record keeping and reconciliation. It's your responsibility as a card holder to keep track of the money spent and what accounts those should be charged to. Submit your reports in a timely manner. Verify you have all receipts, including itemized receipts. So we do need the one that tells me exactly what it was you purchased, rather than just the little credit card slip that they give you occasionally. And make sure you've placed all your receipts in the appropriate folder on the P drive, and I'll explain a little more detail into that later on in the presentation. Expense reports are due to finance by the 10th of each month. An email will go out with notifications of the due date each month, and that's usually around the 5th or 6th of the month. And we do notify you of the date that the expense reports will be due through electronic approvals in the JP Morgan website. The next slide talks about the reasons your card could be terminated. All of these reasons are things that we would talk to you in advance before just canceling your card, except for the fraud. If JP Morgan cannot get a hold of you, they will contact us in finance. And if we feel like we won't be able to get a hold of you either, we usually just cancel the card and have a new one sent to you. But we'll let you know as soon as possible. You can be audited at any time. We do encourage you all to self-audit. Just make sure you have an all of the information and you find and correct any problems. If you ever need any assistance, finance can help you, but as a cardholder, you could be audited by finance, your supervisor, or your manager at any time. The following is a list of restricted purchases. You can't use the card at alcohol bars or liquor stores, gambling establishments, ATMs and banks, professional services, weapons and firearms, office supplies. We are currently under contract with a vendor, and so we do ask that you don't use the card for office supplies at Staples or Office Max, Office Depot, anywhere like that, due to the fact that we are under contract and we ask that you order all supplies through the contract. You also can't use the card for fuel. The only time that it's okay to use it for fuel is in a rental car situation where you need to fill up the vehicle prior to turning it back in. But if you're in a SARA related vehicle or SARA owned vehicle, you'll use the gas cards that's in the vehicle. If you're in your personal vehicle, you would submit for reimbursement of mileage. So never use the P card for fuel in either of those two cases. Closing suggestions, we do ask that you read the P card policy and become familiar with the requirements of the policy. If you ever have any questions or need additional training or assistance, please contact finance and we can help you get that information. The next part of the presentation is just a copy of the policy. This is a copy of the full policy and procedures manual, and we do ask that you read it and become familiar with it. The PowerPoint I just went over goes over the main parts of this policy, but we give this to you so that you have a copy of it just in case you need it. This portion of the presentation goes over the step-by-step instructions on how to process your expense reports. It starts with logging in for the first time, and then it goes into the more detail of how to process your expense reports and exactly what buttons you need to click and how to process that. When it comes to the first time of processing your expense report, if you need assistance, you can contact finance and we can help walk you through it, or you can also contact someone in your department that has a P card already and knows how to do this. But if you ever need any assistance, just let us know. This next section are copies of forms that you may or may not need to use. We do have all of these forms located on SARAnet under Forms and then Finance, and all of the most recent versions of them are up there. So any currently updated forms will be there. You can use those. This is the tax exempt form. This is the form you'll use to receive your tax exemption if we do qualify for the tax exemption. This form is the lost receipt form. It's called the certification of occurrence. You'd fill out all the information and have you and your manager sign the form. This form is just, we do understand that receipts get lost occasionally, and this form is what verifies that the purchase was approved. This last form is the copy of the request to attend conference, meeting, or training. This is the form I spoke about earlier that you need to fill out to get approval to attend a conference or training class. Once you've received this back, this is your approval to go ahead and make any reservations necessary. This last form here is the form that I'll need you to print out from the PDF version that you were sent. Sign, date it, and return it back to finance. Once we've received this form, then we will go ahead and issue your P card and you can begin use of the P card. If you have any additional questions or concerns, contact someone in finance. And thank you for watching this video.